On today's More Than a Test, we have Jerry Almendarez from Santa Ana School District in California. He's been the superintendent there since 2020. That's right. He started there in January 2020 and took over right before COVID hit. He's been there for 5 years and has totally just uplifted that district, really held himself accountable, done some incredible stuff with innovation. If you're in a district thinking about AI, thinking about change, thinking about how do you have deep relationships, great teachers, and also innovation, this is the conversation for you. Don't miss it on More Than a Test. All right, Jerry, the countdown is on. There are 7 days until the start of school, and you're spending time with me. Thank you so much.
Sure, absolutely. It's my pleasure to be here.
How are you feeling getting ready for the school year?
Good. We're excited.
I'll tell you, I watched a YouTube video you put out just a little bit ago, basically kind of outlining the priorities of Santa Ana School District, but letting parents know. It felt like the message was like, "Hey, we don't have the money we used to because we're not getting the federal funding during COVID." Was that the goal, or what was the goal of that message?
No, the goal was actually to update the parents about the financial status of the district. We are going out for a bond this year, so just letting our community know that, we would like to have brand new air conditionings and upgrade our facilities, but we need a little help, and we have a lot of external factors that are kind of leaning on us that kind of slow things down, and so that was the intent behind that.
So, what are some of the external factors?
Well, the reduction in the federal funding, the COVID funding is going away. And then the decline in enrollment is also having a negative impact on our financial status as well.
Okay, so your enrollment is declining. Are you
Mhm.
just having like younger families aren't moving in? It's expensive to live in Santa Ana. Is that kind of what we're
Correct.
okay?
Yeah. We're finding the low birth rate and cost of living seems to be the biggest drivers of that declining enrollment.
I just read in the New York Times that we now have the lowest birth rate we've had in years. So I hear what you're saying, and it sounds like the rest of the world agrees. Let me ask you this, though, because I also read that Santa Ana is the second largest employer in your area. Your district is the second largest employer in your area.
Correct. Yes.
And what you just talked about was like air conditioning, right? So just like, I think people forget that like the facilities are part of the deal, right? And
Exactly.
then your video talked about healthcare, like mental health services
Yes.
and small class sizes.
Yes.
And then what you're also known for is technology. Just to be totally honest, like that's kind of where you fall. How do you manage all those priorities?
Well, I think, we have to look at the big picture and identify how we can embrace this innovative state that we're in to help make us more efficient. And so, you talked about innovation. We're looking at this AI state that we're in and looking at it, approaching it three different ways. One for operational efficiency, another is as a thought partner and help strategic planning, and then third is impacting teaching and learning in the classroom. And so, the conversations around those three areas with our community is really helping us to engage them, but also to identify what the needs are. And so,
Okay, let me dig in on a couple of things you said. You said this innovative state that we're in. Tell me a little bit about what you see as our current innovative state and how it's different from the past.
well, I think the acceleration of innovation is going to happen quicker to us than in the historically it has in the past. In the past, it's taken decades in order for us to get to a level of um, innovation that we have not seen in a while. With the creation of the release of OpenAI and ChatGPT and other AI platforms, it is accelerating that rate of change. And so it is critical for us in Santa Ana Unified School District to really be on the front end of that innovation, learn the platforms as much as we can, learn how they can be used for a variety of different reasons, to leverage that to give our students and our community a fighting chance to be productive and competitive globally.
I feel like you're saying something that I've heard a lot, which is the rate of change is just accelerated, right? Like we're just going to see the classrooms change. And you sound optimistic about that. Why are you optimistic?
Because we're in the driver's seat in a sense. The innovation, the technology is new, and so what we're doing is embracing this newness, looking at how it can be used to impact the instruction, how it can be used to reimagine teaching, reimagine learning, and reimagine leadership. And so we've identified five leadership shifts to be able to navigate this innovative state. And those five shifts that we've embraced here in Santa Ana Unified have allowed us to accelerate how we look at innovation, the tools that we use, and what impact that will have on the classroom and instruction.
I feel like if, we know a lot of our listeners are teachers. And if I was in the classroom still, I was in the classroom for a long time and heard someone say, this is going to like change or inform teaching, I would have maybe like cried a little bit. Right? I'm a big believer in like my teaching is an art. So tell me a little bit more about what you mean about teaching specifically and how AI can enhance it.
Yeah, the biggest question I get is AI going to take my job as a teacher? And the answer is no. It'll actually make your job more human in a sense, because if we are able to learn its capacity and how we can make our job more efficient, that will free us up to do more of the human things like engage with students and have that more human interaction, getting to know them, getting to know their stories, and really trying to find ways to meet them where they're at. So it's not AI that's going to take a person's job, but it's those that know AI that will take people's jobs.
Okay, so you're saying that teachers could become more efficient. Give me a specific, tangible example of how teachers in Santa Ana are becoming more efficient thanks to AI.
So one of the things that we've done the past couple of years is done listening sessions. So we started with students, and then we moved on to our teachers. And one of the biggest frustrations that they're experiencing is the lack of time. And they have to sub classes when they need to combine classes, do all of these compliance reports and all of these things to just to make sure that we're compliant with the state and federal laws. So they don't have enough time. Well, what we discovered as we began to embrace this AI platforms and innovation is that if you know it and you know it well, it will actually free up your time to do those more routine things like developing lesson plans, developing rubrics, grading rubrics, in strategic or to develop your lessons and your units for the year in a very short period of time that allows you more time to actually think of and develop engaging activities that are more human, like in the classroom.
So some of those like routines that we know have to get done. I mean, the rubric thing, I haven't heard that. I've heard scheduling. Scheduling is one of my favorite things. That master schedule, getting help from AI is good. But now this idea of rubrics, when I think about when I was a writing teacher, the amount of rubrics I created by hand, and AI can really at least give me a starting point. Maybe I'll edit it, but then create something that works for my class. I could see that being a huge time saver that I hadn't thought of. So thank you for that. Um, so are you feeling like your teachers are pretty on board?
I would say a portion of our teachers are on board. So we haven't set out a unilateral implementation of this. We've only asked for those early adopters. So anybody interested in learning these platforms, let us know. DM us. Let us know you want to be a part of this group that is exploring, and then we will include you. And so that's really the point where we're at right now. Is like we've adopted probably about 80 certificated classified individuals across the district and created some really cool spaces for them to operate. We've created an innovation catalyst collective, which is a group of district like-minded individuals that are looking at the different platforms, vetting them, seeing how they're being used, who's using them, what are their fears, what are their hopes, and then off a spin-off off of that is what we have created called Curiosity Cruise. And once we've identified platforms that teachers are interested in embracing, then we turn it over to the Curiosity Cruise to begin to pilot and experiment with those different platforms. And if they meet the expectations of the group, then we open that platform up to other teachers that are interested in using them and so forth. And that cycle repeats itself every 4 months.
Wow, I love the way you kind of have a different levels of engagement for teachers. Like, how do you want to engage with this? What do you want to commit your time to? And then a really clear process. And it reminds me of another article I read about you. It was from May. It was talking about Sophia.
Yes.
And you can maybe talk a little bit about what Sophia is. But one of the things the article said was only 30% of superintendents at this moment have an AI plan for their district. So tell me a little bit about Sophia and tell me what advice you would give to a superintendent who currently has no AI plan, which
So,
apparently is most of them.
so like we talked about how accelerated things are taking, the intent that we started with Sophia has now changed, and I'll explain a little bit about that. It's
Oh, great.
she's still going to be available, but the purpose is different. But it all started with a conversation we were having with our executive team and then our Innovative Catalyst collective. In the listening sessions that we've done throughout the district, the biggest issue is people and time, right? They're they're overwhelmed with the routine tasks that could be handled differently if handled a different way. And so one of the comments was, why don't we create this avatar, Sophia, who reflects the district, who will be able to provide a customer service for our community? Because one of the frustrations that our parents were expressing to us is that they call a department and they either can't get through or they get transferred to another department where somebody picks up the phone and gives them inaccurate information and or transfers them back to another department. And so there's just a cycle of frustration that our community has received. And we thought, what better way to embrace this innovation right now and have a person who reflects our community? We named her Sophia, that can communicate in the parent's primary language. And we create this LLM that answers as many questions as possible. And so we introduced her a few months ago, and then we reintroduced her as we were training her. And so the questions, right now, she's able to communicate, interact with another human verbally, and can respond. And so our original intent was to make her public facing, but we're going to slow down a little bit and we're going to create her internal facing only at the very beginning to work out the bugs before we go public with her. So one of the questions that the frustrations that our team has at the district office is we get a lot of phone calls from the school sites. We have 53 school sites where they get questions from community members, and instead of having the answers, they refer them back to the district office. Well, our staff is overwhelmed with all of these phone calls, and they know that sometimes they're not able to answer the phone or they get redirected. So what better way than to create an opportunity for our school sites to have a person like Sophia where they can just communicate with her and then they can respond directly to the parents.
Okay. First of all, let me tell you how much this means to me. So I have 4-year-old twins, and this year in Colorado where I live, we rolled out UPK, which is universal pre-K. So you could like fill out a million forms, sign up for 1,000 things, and then maybe get $500 off your universal pre-K bill. It was really, I have a lot of appreciation for Colorado for the effort that went into this, but it was not easy to navigate as a parent of twins. And the idea what you're talking about, where I was passed around on different people and my school couldn't answer the questions and the district office could, like everything you are describing, I experienced. I would have loved for an AI, or even better, for a human to have AI access who can kind of discern how it's going. So first of all, I love the idea. I can see why it's a value for both parents and staff. I love what you've said, though, is that you went full steam on something and then did realize that the best way to do this might be a step back. That takes humility as a leader to admit that, right? Tell me a little bit about how you communicated that and how you decided, like, hey, we got to turn this in instead of out first.
Yeah, well, I think it goes back to the leadership shifts that I mentioned earlier, and we've identified 5 of them, and where the category that falls into is a category of creating a culture of trust. So working from in isolation to working in collaboration with other people. And so originally we were trying to solve a customer service problem, but then as the more we were including people in this discussion about the impact that it would have for them or to them, the more we learned that we better take our foot off the pedal and slow down a little bit and start internally. That way, if something goes wrong, because there's always a possibility that something could go wrong, then it's at a much smaller scale and closed issue than it would be a public issue. And there have been examples across the country where things haven't gone so well with some of the AI platforms that some districts or some companies are using. And we thought, you know what, we better just slow down and make sure we do this right. And so, listening to our people, another shift that we talk about is going from authority centric to people centric. And that means, as much as I'd like to think I have the answers, I don't have all the answers. And I need to surround myself with people that don't necessarily think like me, but push back and challenge my thinking. And so that's how we're able to navigate the way we've been navigating.
It sounds like the people around you really trust you, right? You roll out some things that, I mean, some people might call innovative, other people might call crazy, and then you have to walk it back and they stick with you. Tell me a little bit about how you built that trust.
Well, I think it started with COVID. What happened was I arrived in Santa Ana Unified School District in January of 2020. I was in my previous district for 25 years. in the Inland Empire, Colton. I thought I was going to retire there. This opportunity became available, and it's very similar to my previous district, but a lot larger. And I thought, you know what, let's give it a shot. I ended up getting it, and then 6 months after I got here, January, no, 3 months after I got here, the pandemic hit. And so I had 3 months to really learn as much about the community as I could. And then I'm an extrovert, if you can't tell. And so all of that was taken away from me. And I was sitting, I remember very lonely time sitting in my office, not knowing what was happening, and thought, how am I going to get out there and meet people and engage and interact and find out what their needs are? And that's when I gravitated towards the social media platforms and started reaching out via Zoom and other social media platforms to really engage and let the community know who I was, but also go out there and capture those amazing things that I could, like the cleaning of our school sites and the repairs and the construction that was able to take place during that time, and really push out those values to our community of saying, hey, here's a little bit about me, and hang in there because we're going to be okay.
And now you've got teachers DMing you when they want to join their technology committees.
Exactly. Yes.
I've got to tell you, that is really impressive. I think that a lot of people shy away from social media for lots of really good reasons. I've heard awful stories from superintendents about their experience with social media, but you had to lean in. You couldn't lean into what you knew naturally. And so you had to lean into something new in order to succeed. And I think that's really valuable. I want to ask you one more thing about your district and about the decisions you've made, because I really love something in your video, and it's so small that someone else might not notice it. But one of the things I hear a lot with this technology piece is like, now we can put lots of kids in the room. Now, and so when I heard at the very end of your video, you said we're investing in mental health and small class sizes. Tell me why small class sizes and innovation and more technology go together.
Well, I think, first of all, it is very difficult when you have large class sizes. I mean, you can't give the attention to those students that need it. And also it takes its toll on the adults in the room. And so we would much rather, and our kids really vocalize this when we do our student listening sessions, is I had a student tell me, Mr. Almendarez, you could have the best lesson plan in the world. And if I know that that teacher doesn't care, then I can care less about that lesson plan. And this was a high school student. We had a kindergartner raise his hand and say, I don't learn well for sitting down for 6 hours. And so, a kindergartner. And so things like that really made us reflect and say, okay, how can we improve the adult interaction with the students? If there are too many kids in the classroom, then that's just not possible. And we know that because we've been down this path for the past 20 years, at least in Santa Ana, and historically we've been below average when it comes to academic performance. So if we know it's not working, what are we going to do different? And that's the charge of doing things different. It's not just about keeping the class sizes low. It's about keeping the class sizes low, providing that emotional, social, and mental support to everybody in the room, not just the students, and then adding the layer of innovation in there that actually has the ability to free up an adult's time to take care of those more routine tasks like developing lessons or rubrics that will free up the adult in order to be a more human like with interaction with the kids in the classroom. And so that's kind of where we landed. And in addition to, we're rolling out our framework for the future this year, which is our instructional model. And that comes with a lot of innovative and creative opportunities for our teachers to actually be able to expose our kids. So that's kind of how we're approaching this.
Okay, I promise we'll get to you in a second, but I want to hear a little bit more about this framework for the future. Give me like high level, like what does the framework look like, and then get a little deeper on like what are some of these opportunities you're hoping teachers will take advantage of.
Okay, so we'll be posting it on our LinkedIn for public, but we've landed on four instructional focuses. And the learning model falls under four categories: personalized learning. So, in that being co constructed with students. So, students want to be, we call them architects of their own learning, but they need to have the learning needs to be personalized and meaningful to them. And then we have it competency based. As much as we think accountability and assessments are important, that's not our driver. Our driver is the outcomes, and which is another shift that we go from measurement to future impact. And competency based is that future impact. It's like, can they demonstrate the skills that we're asking them that are embedded in these standards? We don't really care about do they know A, B, or C. We want to see them perform. And then, is it authentic? Is it meaningful to them? Are they? Is it? Does it solve real world problems? Does it have an impact on them personally at all levels? And then, is it inclusive and equitable? Do we take cultural diversity into consideration? Are we providing opportunities for our students to really interact and engage with other cultures and things and people that think differently than them to engage? So that's our learning model. Within those learning models, we have all kinds of other detailed information that will be public once the document is posted.
Oh, I can't wait. I'm so excited to read it. I think it's really important. I think the one thing that I heard in there that I haven't heard anywhere else is about how what the impact is of what they're doing. Like, are they looking at that positive impact? I don't know if you've ever heard of the Japanese concept of ikigai, but it's about like finding your purpose in life. And it's like, what are you good at? What do you enjoy? What does the world need? And then like the last one is like, what will make you money? But it's
Yeah,
like this concept of like you thinking about your impact, like what does the world need from you? I think is really valuable, and I love that. So I can't wait for it to come out. And thank you for sharing. So when you talk about Santa Ana, it sounds like you've been there your whole life, right? It's you. It can tell like you're very rooted in the work that you're doing. You know your teachers, you know your maintenance staff that are fixing the ACs, but you haven't been there that long. You took the job, as you said, right before COVID in January. So March, COVID hits at any point, and California was shut down, I think, longer than most places. So I'm sure Santa Ana was too. At any point were you like, oh my gosh, what have I done taking this job
yeah,
over now?
yeah. I left a place that I had been for 25 years. It was my comfort zone, my safety zone, and went to a district that I didn't really know anybody, and then COVID hit, and but I think the community is very similar to the community that I left. It's just twice as big in the middle of Orange County, and so I was received with open arms, and the community just embraced me. And then COVID hit, and then we started to reach out via our social media feeds and really got to interact with our community in that respect too. And I remember we did things like book clubs just to keep our sanity, to check in on teachers to see how did the day go. We would under the cover of a book have really deep emotional conversations. There were a lot of us that had losses in our family, personal tragedies. That there were times when I logged in and I said, I'm only here because the meeting is scheduled, but I need help today. And teachers would come up and say, "We got you, Mr. Almendarez," and they would facilitate the conversation and then bring me back. Then I'd have a smile on my face 20 or 30 minutes into the dialogue. But there was a lot of that going on. So I think being able to nurture and develop those relationships early on through this crisis really said a lot about the community that I was serving and their heart, but also they got to see my heart and what I brought to the district, and it was a good fit. So I feel like I've been here my whole life.
When you survive something like that, I was in the Peace Corps at one point in my life, and it's one of the things they say about Peace Corps is like you'll be close to these people forever because they're the only other ones who will truly understand the experience you're about to have, right? Like the hards, the good, the highs and the lows. I have to know, what books do you remember any of the books from your book
Oh
clubs?
yeah, personal and authentic. Yeah, we read personal and authentic books that really tried to inspire. A book called Imaginable by Jay McGonigal, personal and authentic. Uh, Kids deserve it. Books that really were just timely in the sense of trying to keep our morale up and also give us hope. And so they got us through some very difficult times. We were actually closed for 2 years. We were one of two districts in Orange County that were closed for 2 years because our community is a blue collar, high blue collar community. So a lot of our families are service workers, and they live in multifamily dwellings. So when they would get sick, their whole family got sick. And so the health rates within Orange County in the health department, we were at such a high rate for 2 consecutive years that they would not allow us to open up. When surrounding districts, a little bit higher income wealth, were able to open up, and so it was a very traumatic and very stressful time.
Are you still bouncing back from that? Like, are you still recovering?
No, we're all in. We don't want to take or that victim mentality. We are picked ourselves up, dusted off the dust, and are moving forward. And this is where the leverage of this innovative state that we're in. And around the same time that OpenAI released ChatGPT, the World Economic Forum released its Jobs and Skills of the Future report, and we just embraced that with open arms and said, okay, you know what? We're standing tall, we're moving forward, and let's get our kids ready for a global economy.
That's incredible. Okay, so 25 years in one district. How did you make the decision it was time to go somewhere else?
That's a good question. I think I'd been there for 25 years and I was a superintendent for the last 10. And I think as a superintendent, I got to the point where I was like, the district that I was previously at was running pretty smooth. I had a great team, and I thought, you know what? I wonder if I can do this in another district. And so I wasn't looking to leave, but when you've been a superintendent for 10 years in one place, people start to say, "Hey, would you be interested in moving?" And so I had a couple of people reach out to me and say, "Hey, we think you'd be really good." Um, so I listened to a few, had a conversation with my wife, and together we said, "You know what? Let's give it a shot. If it doesn't work out, it's not meant to be." And so I went through the process, and to my surprise, I ended up getting the job, and here I am. And I don't regret it one bit. I love this community. I actually live in about an hour and a half away, and I commute in every day on the train. And so this is. I didn't want to sell my house because the life of a superintendency and the job itself is very volatile. So I thought, you know what, I'll just play it safe. And so I've been commuting the 5 years, and I love every minute of it, and I wouldn't change a thing.
Well, that and buying a house in California is nothing but
There you
rocky.
go.
That makes sense. Okay, let me ask you this. Tell me one thing you brought from your old district and one thing you definitely left behind at your old district.
Oh gosh, one thing I brought was my. There's a process that we used in the Inland Empires where I was originally from, called the collective impact process, and it's just really a strategy of being that rallying point for the community. So bringing decision makers and community leaders together, sit at a table, and identify what the priorities are for this community. So I brought that process here, and I'm happy to say that. There had been so much turnover in Santa Ana prior to me getting here. There was a new superintendent every 2 years for a couple of years.
And wasn't
That
it two people filling the role right before you that they had to
Yeah,
call in two people to do what you can do as
yeah,
by yourself? Go ahead.
yeah. And so I think the community was looking for that leadership. And not that I am a stellar leader, but just being able to pull people together and to give the process a chance really accelerated this change. And so that's, I would say, what I love about where I'm at now is I was able to bring that process here, pull people together, and just identify what our priorities are, and us all in on trying to accomplish that. One thing I left behind, gosh, that is a hard one. Um, I don't know. I grew up in that district. I attended school, and my family still lives there. So I think I want to say I left my, the like I'm trying to think of the right word. This is where you have to edit now.
No, it's fine. Tell them. Describe it. Usually I can help somebody, but I'm not sure
Yeah.
what you're saying. So tell me more.
So I don't think I left anything, to be honest with you. I left my family, but they're
The
still
house.
there. The house. Not much. I thought I was going to retire there,
So you
but
left some old dreams behind, some old expectations.
there you go. So that's exactly what it is. I guess the expectations of ending my career in a community that I grew up in, and um, you know, in hindsight, it was a difficult decision at the time, but it was a good decision and probably the best decision that I ever made.
That's really lovely, and I know those expectations all too well. So that's really neat, and I find it very inspiring that you decided to move on, and that it ended up being a tough time, but that you've kind of grown something beautiful. I have to ask you somewhat of a personal question because I was leading a school here in Boulder, and I had a dean of students. His name is Joe Gutierrez, and Joe Gutierrez heard that I was interviewing you and looked you up, and he called me right away, and he said, Laura, he doesn't speak Spanish either because Joseph Gutierrez was 6'2" Latino man who used to have to bring our Latino families to my office for me to translate for him. It was one of his hardest things. You know, despite being, you know, his family's from Mexico. And so he wanted me to ask you, like, what is it for you to, I think, you know, at least look Latino from what, have a last name and then also not be able to speak Spanish. Am I right about that?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Actually, I'm the only one in my family that doesn't. I'm the youngest of three, and there's a 10-year gap. At the time I was growing up in the 70s, my family were blue collar workers and they're just trying to keep their jobs and make a better life for us. And so it wasn't looked upon in our area of the country to be multilingual. So my brother and sister knew it, but they were 10 and 11 years older than me. And the language didn't carry over to me. Now, it's something I regret, something that hurts my soul because I lost the language given the environment that I grew up in. But it doesn't stop me from working with a community that is bilingual. And a lot of the community that I serve remind me of my aunts and uncles, and there's nothing that I wouldn't change. I get invited to barbecues, I get invited to school buffets and open houses, and I go and I feel so welcome and so loved. And those that can only communicate in Spanish will find somebody to translate. And I know a little bit of Spanish to be able to begin a conversation, but not to carry it out to the end. So I'll find somebody that can help translate. But I think what he's referring to is the online AI platform that I was able to
Yeah.
send a message in Spanish and stuff like that. So we're looking for ways to be able to break down those communication barriers. And I think this innovation that's starting to emerge right now is going to allow us to do it in real time.
I appreciate so much. I think you spoke to everything Joe felt. He feels a lot of like wishing he could go back and learn Spanish, you know, a little bit of shame, and also like I know I know I have something to offer this community, and I know that this is where I belong. And I think he'll really resonate with what you said. And I'll tell you what I resonate with is his daughters use Amira, the program I work for. And the first time he saw it, so the kids read out loud to it, they were using it in English. And he looked at me and he said, Laura, does it work in Spanish? And I said, yeah. And he's like, well, I want my daughters to have what I don't have, you know? And he's like, I really need them to learn Spanish. So let's talk about that. So do your kids speak Spanish?
So my no, my son does it, but my daughter does. And
Right.
so and she's 30 years old, and share with him that there is hope. And she saw the struggles that I went through and the shame, I'll be honest, the shame that I went through because I didn't know it. Because people would come up to me and then even expect me to speak it, and I would be, I'm sorry. And that wasn't their intent, but it always impacted the way I viewed myself. And so but now I'm an advocate, probably the biggest advocate for bilingual education, and our kids are uh, have so many assets, and a lot of them are trilingual. And that's another reason to embrace this innovative state we're in, because we're no longer trying to prepare our kids for a local or regional or national economy. This is a global economy. And so coming out of high school, they have that much more advantage because they're multilingual. And so it's a interesting times.
Have you shared your personal story with any students who like maybe aren't exploring Spanish or that you think should learn?
I have on occasion, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Does it work? Do
Uh,
they?
you know what? I actually did a TED talk.
Did you? I should look it up.
I,
Of all the things I looked up, I didn't find that. Okay, I'll look that up next.
I've done two of them actually. One of them were for the students at a high school in my previous district, and then as a result of that process, they nominated me to the TED Innovative Educator Program, and I got accepted. And then the second one was a talk I gave in oh gosh, not Ireland, maybe it was Scotland. Yes, Scotland.
Oh, okay, great. Funny story about Scotland, and then I have one more question about you as a leader, and then we're going to move on to the future of education and what you think for that. Scotland, I took my children to Scotland this year, and their accents, they're speaking English, but their accents were so heavy that my children kept trying to speak Spanish with people. They were like, I don't know what they're. She's like, I don't know what you're saying, so let me try this. So it just shows how important communication is. You know, you talked about innovative educators and innovative learning, and if you know Google your name, and innovative is at least one of the first 5 words to come up. When you think about what that means, what does that mean to you, and what do you have to do to be innovative?
You just have to have an open mind and willing to learn. And it just happens to be innovation that's in this moment in time. So that's what I'm learning. My whole driver is to be relevant, to maintain my relevancy, and bring people in that can help me make decisions that don't serve my generation or my needs, but future generations' needs. And if we're not identifying what those drivers are, what those emerging trends are, if we're not communicating with younger generations, like where I found out about OpenAI and ChatGPT was on TikTok. Well, what is a 50-year-old man doing on TikTok, right? Well, I was pulled there by what I call reverse mentors, younger researchers, younger educators across the country that I kind of gravitate towards, encouraged me to get on TikTok because they said if you're going to be a superintendent of a large urban school district, you need to know where the younger generation is and what they're all about. And so I said, okay. So I created an account, got on there, and I was just thumbing through and just observing. And then all of a sudden, that's when the OpenAI and ChatGPT started to emerge. And I was like, what in the heck is this? And then it took off from there. My curiosity took off. But innovation means to be open minded and willing to continue to learn.
That's incredible. I love it. I love the TikTok story. I have someone who works in my company, Julie, will be thrilled to hear that you enjoy TikTok. You are cooler than I am, is what I will say about that. So thank you. All right, let's talk a little bit about the future. So you talk a lot about preparing kids for all kinds of jobs, all kinds of experiences, but education. I think I read an article that it's going to change more in the next 5 years than it has in the last 100. Tell me, what do you think is going to be some of the best changes, and what makes you a little bit nervous?
Well, the speed of change, it makes me nervous because not a lot of people are in this space or having these conversations, and that bothers me. The changes that are going to happen are really unknown at this time, but what I do know is what we've been doing hasn't been working. And I do know that there's a wave of innovation that's taking place that we need to learn as quickly as possible how it can impact the outcomes that we get in public education. And so that's the journey that we're on right now, is to be on the front end of this wave, to be risk takers, and to learn as much as we can about it and how it can be useful for outcomes that we're trying to achieve in reading and math, for our kids to be successful, and for us to close the gap, the equity gap between our groups of students, and allow them to compete globally.
Okay. So we're a little nervous about the rate of change. There's definitely an opportunity for kids to just accelerate, right? Like that's what's really exciting is who knows what our kids will do. When you look at the things that you're encouraging teachers to use, and you can name products or not, but like what are you encouraging teachers to use?
So we're piloting a couple of different AI platforms. So Claude, OpenAI, ChatGPT, Perplexity, Copilot, Bard. Because we're just trying to find our groove right now, right? But we've also created an AI guidance, and we wouldn't have given them the opportunity to explore those different platforms without that AI guidance. And so the AI guidance serves as guardrails that allows people to, to begin this journey. And then also to the curiosity crews and the innovative catalysts are crews that are charged with, okay, how can these platforms be used in the classroom with students? How are the adults using them? And so that's the space that we're in right now, is really navigating and learning what that looks like. And if you go on to our LinkedIn feeds, Bianca Barkeen, who's my assistant super ed services on our LinkedIn account, she's sharing examples of those innovative Catalyst Collective and the conversations that are happening and the work that are being done by these committees.
So you're not just on social media, you're encouraging your teachers to go to social media too for resources and posting things and tell me like what's the value of posting to LinkedIn as opposed to like your own internal.
So we coined it leading with social influence, right? Being intentional about the content that we push out and not just random. I mean, it's good to see pictures of celebrations and stuff, but we really want to do a better job of telling our story with intention. And so we are like, Instagram is more for our teachers and our families. Facebook is for our parents and grandparents, and LinkedIn is for our colleagues and our researcher friends. And so that's why we're telling our team push it out on LinkedIn because one, we can get critiqued on it, people can give us feedback on it, but two, we want to know if we're heading in the right direction. And if people call us up and say, or DM us and say, hey, we want to know more about this, or hey, we did something similar, here are the mistakes that we made, that is valued and appreciated for on our end. And the other reason for posting it is because it gives us a sense of accountability, self accountability, because now that we're posting it, we better follow through because people are going to be waiting to see what that framework for the future looks like.
Wow, that's incredible. I didn't think about that accountability piece, and I really love that you said it because think about the Sophia example, right? You put it out there and then you got to but everyone gets to watch you do that. And so even though it's not easy, it's also valuable for your community to see the way decisions are being made, the transparency and that you own the decisions you make.
Correct. What it leads to is other people that are curious. So this morning before this interview, I was meeting with two executives from Apple, and we had an hour conversation turned into a 2 hour conversation talking about the innovative catalyst collective that we have, the curiosity cruise, and things that are new to them in the sense of where public education is starting to go, and they wanted to know more about it. Well, being able to have that conversation with them and then saying, hey, here's some things that we would like to partner with you. Now I can go back to my teacher, the Innovative Catalyst Collective, and say, hey, guys, I want to introduce you to a few people, and here are some resources that they're willing to extend to us. And so it's just like it breeds more thinking and more curiosity and more creativity.
Okay, I have to ask you a question, but I want to say something about that because I think it's so valuable is that if you're willing to be open to technology, being willing to work with different products, companies, whatever, they come to you, right? We always say this that a great partner listens to teachers, they listen to districts and that they're willing to show Apple showing up at your door is pretty cool. It says a lot about what you're building and cultivating. The last question I want to ask you is that must have said the word curiosity a dozen times in the last 5 minutes. You got on TikTok because you were curious and you talk a lot about that. And I think that there's this concept that like maybe teachers or the older we get, the less curious we are. How do you continue to grow curiosity in yourself and also in your team?
Well, again, I'll go back to the maintaining relevancy in what we're doing and not creating an environment or experiences that are good for me. Because that would be easy for me to sit in my office, answer the phones, attend meetings, and just, and then retire. But it's not about me. It's about the generations in the community we serve. And, having that frame of mind, but also reaching out to an organization that we use and we partner with, which is the Institute for the Future, who we brought in to work with our executive cabinet on the framework for strategic foresight, which myself has been trained in my executive cabinet. Now we're bringing them in to work with our curiosity cruise and our innovative catalyst collective to really begin stretching our thinking and reimagining teaching, learning, and leading in public schools.
That's awesome. All right, we're running out of time. This has been really lovely, and you've got to get ready for the first day. So we're going to do our 5 rapid fire questions, okay? All right. So the first question is obviously we're a reading company. So we're going to ask you about reading. We want you to tell us a lit moment. So this is a moment of you in a book that either is your happy place or changed your life. Something about you in a book.
Okay, so The Coming Wave is probably the one that lit me up during COVID, that I had an opportunity to read and really open my mind to this innovative state that we're in. Mustafa Guffason, who's the one of the founders of OpenAI, wrote the book, and just really powerful. I would encourage anybody to read it, especially the community leaders, because there's a wave coming, and we need to be ready for it.
Yeah, that's incredible. Tell us. Okay, so the podcast is called More Than a Test. Everyone thinks more than a test and hears something different. When you heard more than a test, what did it mean to you?
I thought it was an interactive conversation about relationships.
That's great. A piece of technology you love.
My iWatch.
Oh yeah, why I hear phone a lot. Tell me about the watch.
Well, I don't necessarily need my phone as much as I need my watch because I can always just look down, or I can do searches, or I can actually talk if I need to on the phone, but it gives me breaking news. And I don't have to be that awkward moment where I'm staring at my phone as opposed to just pulling up my sleeve and glancing at my watch.
Just looks like you're running late.
It shortens that. It shortens the amount of screen time I have in meetings.
That's true. All right. The best advice you've ever been given?
Um, the best advice I'd ever be given is be nice to everybody because you never know who's going to be your boss.
Oh, that is a good one. And did you ever have somebody become your boss that you were shocked by?
No, but I became somebody's boss that was mean to me.
Oh no. What did you, and I'm assuming you forgave and loved them or you fired them. What did you do?
I killed them with kindness.
Your mother and grandmother would be proud. All right. And one book you think everyone should read?
Imaginable by Jay McGonigal.
And I don't know. I heard you mention it earlier, and I'm going to go look it up right after this. Well, thank you so much. Thank you for sharing Santa Ana with me today. Thank you for everything you do for districts and leaders. I'm so glad that you are one of the 63% who have an AI plan for the fall, and that you're also willing to share that sometimes you throw things out and bring them back. So I really appreciate it. This has been a great conversation.
Yeah, Laura, thank you so much for the invitation. I appreciate it.
Thanks for joining us on the More Than a Test podcast. If you found this conversation valuable, subscribe to our YouTube channel and find us on your favorite podcast platform. At Amira Learning, we believe every child deserves a chance to become a reader, and we're excited to be part of this conversation. See you next week, and thanks for joining.